sky was designed to save the world. People would look to the sky and see hope. I'll take that from them first.
Welcome, everybody, to the Next Reels Film Board, a monthly gathering of the Next Reels gang of thugs to take on a film currently in theaters right now. This month, we're off to Sokovia to catch up with Steve, Tony, Natasha, Bruce, and Clint as they struggle to adopt some twins and make some really poor choices in configuring their security automation system. But before we get to that, please allow me to introduce our most respected thugs in residence, the true benefactor of our motley team who really does make us all look cooler, Andy Nelson.
Hey, everybody.
Struggling to find his future after 60 years on ice, that's Tommy Handsome right there.
Hi, friends.
Unsure if he's dead or alive or dead again, but still rocking that kicking eye patch, Justin Jaeger.
Hello.
A monster in his own mind, just trying to settle down with the love of his very own diminutive Russian assassin. Mike Evans is back.
I am Groot.
A shoo-in for any conversation on superheroes thanks to his inherent bravery, his courage, and his alliteration, Steve Sarmento.
How's it going, everybody?
And me, Pete Wright, just hanging out with cool kids like Hill and Coulson do. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us for this film board. Before we get into the show, make sure you go learn about us, a little bit more about us at thenextreel.com/filmboard. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel, and make sure to subscribe to the show for free in iTunes or your favorite podcast application. Gentlemen, this film is opening to a kickin' hot weekend. It's doing very well, although as far as I understand it, not quite as well as its predecessor. Still, somehow, Age of Ultron is taking us all by storm. Joss Whedon, writer and director. What is your stance on this film from the Joss perspective? And I ask this because the first thing that I heard when I walked out of the theater was a news item that said Joss was exhausted bringing this film home. Did you feel the exhaustion, Steve?
I felt a little, well, yes, I did. I'll leave it like that, and we'll get into it in detail later. Yes, I did enjoy it, but I did feel some weariness coming through.
Weariness?
Yeah.
All right. Bone tired. Tommy, what'd you think?
We all know that fantasy and superhero movies aren't exactly my jam, but in the hands of someone like Joss Whedon, I had a great time. I thought it was really funny. And to his absolute credit, again, because of me, I pretty much understood what was going on the whole time. Until Thor went into that lightning water or whatever, then everything got squirrely. But until then, and then after that, I thought it was really fun, and I had a great time. And I went with someone that could explain what everything meant later.
Oh, I like to hear that. That gives me hope for this particular episode. JJ, what'd you think?
From the writing perspective, I thought it was pitch perfect for me. I thought the tone was consistent throughout and funny. I thought it was very funny throughout, and to what Tommy was saying, there was no confusion at all for me. And of course, I'm kind of well rooted in the whole comic book history, being a collector from the 80s. But I thought he pieced everything together perfectly.
Oh, I'm even more excited. Mike?
I would say that there were a couple tired tropes and a few tangents that may have been exhausted. I think there was maybe a little thing. Maybe I guess maybe the little writing was a little. Maybe they took a few shortcuts that seemed a little obvious, but other than that, it was pretty enjoyable.
Oh man, that's great! And here I'm saving who I think is maybe the most angsty for last. Andy, what'd you think?
Most angsty.
Yeah. Did you like it?
Well, maybe I am a little angsty.
I knew it.
I enjoyed it, I think, more than the previous Avengers film.
Oh, that actually says a lot.
But but not as much as most of the individual films. I did find it a little wearying, and particularly Tony Stark / Iron Man. I really he wore on me quite a bit in this one.
And I liked some of the stuff they were doing with it, but on the whole, I just felt like it was just stuff that I had seen before, and it was just so big that I never really felt like there were any serious threats happening. And so I left. I mean, I had a good time. I had some good laughs, but it didn't really jump out at me. Yeah, I'm that guy.
I so nailed you. I knew you would bring the angst. I actually, I found myself really enjoying it, and maybe it was the audience. It was a great, great audience. Seemed to laugh at all the right moments. My kids were obviously delighted at just being there, and so put something on screen in a helmet or shooting some sort of wispy red stuff. Wow, was she a favorite?
What's her name?
Scarlet Witch.
Fair enough.
Wanda is her name.
Wanda Witch.
Yeah.
Is it Wanda Witch, keeping with our alliteration? But I deeply enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, but I agree. I actually felt some fatigue, and I felt like, man, I can see why we're jumping into Infinity Wars with the Russos coming up. So I'm very excited about it. I wonder if we could start with our I'm going to say most well-versed comic participants.
It's me,
Mike and JJ.
Oh, it's not me?
No.
I really thought it was my time to shine.
JJ and Mike, could you guys just share a little bit of your thoughts about how the book to screen adaptation went? Did they hit the Ultron story in a way that would do fairness to the book?
Well, so that's a great question for me, because Ultron, going into the movie, Ultron is one of my least favorite villains from the books. Ultron is kind of this usually lame, redundant foil that's just kind of silly and generally worthless, because the history of Ultron, there's like a huge number of iterations of Ultron. The first one was Ultron 5, and then they just kind of keep bringing him back whenever they need another crazy robot in the books, the soap opera that is the Marvel Universe in book form. And so when they announced that the second Avengers movie was going to have Ultron as the bad guy, I was actually really wary of it. But I was super happy with the way that they treated it. I thought James Spader was perfect in the way that in his sort of discovery of the Ultron role. It made it, Joss Whedon's story made it significant in a way that the Ultron character in the books never was. And so I guess my answer to your question, Pete, is I don't think they deviated where they needed to deviate from the Marvel Universe in book form. I mean, some of the Quicksilver change, I guess you'd have to say right away, that how he ends is really a surprise. But in general, I think they took some great steps away from the books, and then had some great bridges to where the books were too. I mean, I never saw the Vision coming, for example. And some of the things that I think people who are non-comic book readers might find weary, from the conversation we were having before, I found to be great answers to my questions. Why? Like, why Hawkeye was my question when I came to the first Avengers. Like, why are they bringing in Hawkeye? And now I kind of have an answer why. And we can get into that a little bit later about where they're going in the realm of the books. But I just think they made the right parallels and the right deviations, and that's why I was happy with it.
Good answer.
That was a great answer. What did you think, Mike?
So I disagree completely.
Oh, snap! Film board off! Woo, woo!
But in the most respectful way possible, and I don't think I have as probably as deep of a actual book history as JJ does. But from the movie standpoint, I didn't feel like they. I mean, so James Spader's performance was great, sort of creepy / sinister, but it felt very. I guess, if I return, very comic the whole time. I had a hard time believing he was the bad guy. Like, he was a bad guy. Like, the personality, I think, is what got me from the way that they actually implemented him. He was supposed to draw from, I think, Tony's, his hubris, his ego, and I think that's what they intended, and it sort of came out to be. There was a lot of believability things for me. And that was the worst part about the whole movie for me was believability of him as the villain, because there was lots of things that they were just sort of fast forwarding through. I think, like, even the end, like, it's like if one robot like survives, well, I mean, they're there's like thousands of them all over the place. How are they supposed to track down every single one of them? It's like lots of things they sort of just fast forwarded through.
Well, it's interesting to say that. I actually did, I thought the fast forwarding part, I think both of you kind of mentioned that, this whole idea that some things happened awfully quickly. For me, the one that stands out is the actual sort of definition of kind of the boot up of Ultron. He sort of found his purpose really, really fast, and I didn't get any sense of kind of that evolution that I kind of wanted, and maybe that's just, I like to watch computers build themselves when I'm not working. I don't know. So I really, I found myself kind of missing that element. But one of the things that I personally thought was actually nice, sort of to your point, Mike, was that I didn't, and maybe to Andy's too, I didn't get the sense that Ultron was inherently evil, and I sort of found that Spader's performance was a little bit over the top in this regard, but that Ultron was much more Tony Stark's personality having come to a solution to a problem that only he could come to.
But the problem is that the base personality of the blue flashy light AI was effectively seemed to be Malvit from the get-go. I mean, what he did to the Jarvis or the yellow flashy light.
Well, that's what I mean. It was super fast, but I got the, from my perspective, he was processing, right? That was just super fit. Wait a minute, I get it. Okay, I got an answer.
Yeah.
And so that for me is like, I bought that. Like I bought into that completely. Did anybody else?
He seemed like a teenager.
Yeah.
To me. Like he didn't have the ability to he has no empathy and all that kind of stuff. He made a snap decision based on what little he was given, and of course knew that he was right and was already angry at his father.
Thinking about that, the teenager and all that jump right to the malevolent nature is really interesting, considering where we're at now in 2015. Because one of the reasons why I didn't want Ultron to come in is because Ultron was a lame robot in the 80s, right? And now he has access to the internet.
Oh, and that's everything.
All of a sudden, you have the speed of development, right? Like you're saying, Tommy, he's a teenager, and he realizes everything in an instant. And I right away, for me, the switch that was making me think I was going to hate him when they announced that he was going to be the bad guy, I was like, oh yeah, he's going to be infinitely more powerful in today's age than he was when I was reading the books in the 80s. So I bought into it.
Okay, but see, I didn't. Okay, and this is just my piece of it. When I first sort of tracked, them building the villain, right? I got the impression that this was a infinitely old personality or intelligence that was in the Infinity Stone that was then interfacing. I didn't get the impression that this was a brand new young intelligence. I got the impression that we basically had tapped into something that was much older and much more powerful and much more intelligent than us, and this was the and basically we had a Skynet moment. It's like turned on.
That's definitely a different interpretation for sure.
Well, and I think it's all about the idea of interface, right? I mean, it's like for me, it was like that intelligence already existed, and it was the Infinity Stone that allowed it to manifest. But you're right; it's an interpretation thing. Steve, Andy, how did you guys hit take to Ultron's birth?
I enjoyed Ultron. I thought he was. I kind of agree with both sides. I feel like he was maybe a little too silly for me at times, but I also did enjoy kind of that teenager nature of him, where it was almost like, he was still developing his own morals, or he wasn't quite there as far as figuring out what was right and what was wrong. He was just kind of figuring it out as he went along.
He didn't even know his own strength. Like, for instance, exactly what you're saying, Andy, is like when he rips that guy's arms off, he doesn't even know his own strength.
Right. But to that end, it's at the same time, he also, he does absorb all of that information awfully quickly, and you'd think that would give him some level of, like a deeper level of understanding of things, and a more ability to process, the bigger picture faster. And I don't feel like he processes the bigger picture faster. I feel like he just latches on to the few things that Stark says and and that basically sets him in motion and puts him on the path that he goes down.
But you see, that's what you've just described is the Vision.
We could definitely stay on the Ultron path for quite some time, but there are a couple of key points, and the Vision is one of them. That are my favorite things to talk about. So I'm just going to vomit them all up there, and you guys can see what you think. Number one, how is it that after being a completely menial character in the first Avengers, Hawkeye is my favorite character in this film? Point number one.
Hear, hear.
Point number two, Quicksilver, what the hell? Point number two. And point number three, the Vision. Totally didn't see that coming. Where would you like to begin?
Can I, at risk of being the worst jerk in the world, I actually had one more thing to say about Ultron. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, but I think it'll be really quick.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, do it. You deserve this. You've earned it.
Ultron in his final form, and unless I got something wrong, he broke what I like to call Tommy's laws of dumb robotics in movies, in that I like James Spader's performance. That was fine. But I thought it was so dumb that Ultron's mouth moves to speak.
I hated that.
And I thought it was so dumb. And I thought it was so dumb that he blinked. Like, robots don't need to do those things because they're robots. They don't have lungs or eyelids because they're made of robots. That's like a robot getting allergies. It made me so angry. I hate robots that do human things like that. And now I'm done. Go ahead.
Why doesn't Iron Man's suit blink? That would have finished the circle gets the square on that.
Why are they talking like that? That's so weird. You don't have lungs. You don't need to move your.
Well, I don't want to out myself as the fanboy, but I'll come off probably as an apologist for a lot of these types of things when we ask these kinds of questions. But okay,
but you
so
are the
Ultron,
fanboy. That's why you're so excited to be
So
here.
Ultron, even in the story arc here, is trying to evolve himself and evolve humanity into this sort of mixture of the two, right? So the idea of what Vision was when it was Ultron's creation was both a robot and a human. So I'm answering Tommy's questions with, he shouldn't be moving his mouth and blinking his eyes, with the fact that he wants to mix robotics and humanity to actually get to that level.
Fair enough.
Well, and I think that's the problem, though, too, JJ, is that he hadn't gotten there yet. Like, I can totally see how the Vision would blink and, because he had the fake plasticky stuff from the Korean doctor. But Ultron didn't yet, and I think that's what was it. It's like Optimus Prime moving his mouth. That was that ended up being stupid.
Yeah, he's a wannabe. I get it.
Well, yeah,
it's
aspirational. He's aspiring to that, so he's going to mimic it to the best of his ability till he's able to evolve those functional capacities.
I can explain why he does that. $190 million.
Fair point. Fair point.
Okay, so
That's
Pete, your
Yeah.
three characters, right?
Yeah.
Hawkeye. So the reason, totally didn't expect Jeremy. Well, and first of all, I personally don't like Jeremy Renner for some reason. No reason. I don't know why. Like, I just feel like in high school we wouldn't have gotten along. But Hawkeye is super important. So I didn't expect to like him too. But he's actually the second. Like, he's the next leader that they're setting up for the Avengers. Whether or not Captain America stays as the leader of the Avengers, Hawkeye in the books actually splits off and forms an entire separate Avengers crew, which the main characters in that crew are Hawkeye, Quicksilver, and Scarlet Witch.
West Coast.
So much for that crew.
The West Coast Avengers, right? Well, that's why. So that leads us to the next thing with Quicksilver. What the hell, right? I don't know if your what the hell was a good thing or a bad thing, but so he gets killed, but we don't really see him dead, right? We see him. It's a comic book, so who knows what's going to happen with that?
They healed everybody else that got shot by bullets.
Exactly.
Maybe he goes through he goes to Tahiti.
Dr. Cho. Yeah.
Right? He goes to the Tahiti Theta Protocol, whatever that is.
And he could have, he's super fast, so maybe his healing, it's going to push the bullets. Who knows? I don't know. It's comic books. We can do these things. And then Vision, I totally didn't get it either. Even as they're like, and I'm the super fanboy here, and as they're lacing his skin red, I totally didn't catch it until even they said the word Vision. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's Vision.
Okay, why did your brain explode at the Vision? Set some context for me.
Because it connects, all of a sudden the West Coast Avengers are formed, right? So now you have Hawkeye, Iron Man, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Vision. Like, this is the West Coast Avengers. So that question that I said at the beginning of the podcast here, why Hawkeye? Why did they include Hawkeye? Who cares about Hawkeye? All of a sudden you're like, oh, they're still setting the table. Even as this story is kind of ending a chapter, right? As we get through what we're doing, we're walking away and we've got the new Avengers Assemble. They're still setting the table. And I just am in admiration of Marvel and the Marvel Studios and how they're doing all this. I don't like Ultron. I don't care about the Infinity Stones. I don't care about all that stuff. But I love how the care at which they're approaching their universe, and they're making sure that the common threads continue through, and that's why that's why my brain exploded when I saw Vision.
That's fun.
So
that's so exciting.
Was Vision, and I don't mean to just really stick on this Vision thing and the specific characters, but was Vision, was his origin story similar to this? Is this how he was really formed, or they just plop that in from some other storyline?
It's yes and no. So I can actually access the original story, and we can go through just a quick details of it. But he was originally created by Ultron, and not by Tony Stark and Bruce Banner. So they've, again, I go to the thing where they've deviated where they needed to deviate to do what they're doing, but they've also stayed true to the thing there. So it's kind of like it, but not exactly.
But they've mixed up enough of the origin stories in this universe that to a certain extent it doesn't. They haven't locked themselves to being questioned about that. I mean, effectively, they're using the books as inspiration.
Do you agree with that, JJ?
Yeah, I think I agree with that, and I think you have to do that. I'm still freaked out about Quicksilver. I'll put that out there. But yeah, in general, tweaking an origin story. I mean, they've done the origin story for Wolverine now 3 times, right?
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable doing that as long as they settle on something that they like.
If I'm okay to interject just a mild, breaking the fourth wall here. The issue about Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver is interesting because there's the IP. Intellectual property pools that the different production houses own, and so it's like I think they had to tweak Quicksilver a little bit because he can't be a mutant.
Right, I think that's true because he's already been named in the X-Men series as
right, but Fox
right?
owns Marvel mutant IP, so none of the enhanced humans in the Disney ones can be, or the ones that are being done by the actual Marvel studio, I guess you could call it, can use the mutant lines at all.
And that's why they use enhanced.
Exactly. That's
and they've really been digging into that
in
in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. too. They've been setting that particular table.
And that's crazy because Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are the twin children of Magneto.
Right.
In the books. So, I mean, they're totally mutants in the books. So that's interesting that legal
because Fox owns X-Men and all mutants, so it's like they use the Mind Stone and they use different ways to sort of bring those powers into the thing, but not calling them that.
I like the sentence "Fox owns all mutants."
Well, and the other piece in this pool is Sony, because Sony owns has the rights, I guess, for the Spider-Man stuff. Right, so because he's not in this, and he's not a mutant, but he's their IP, and there's rumors of them working with to bring him into this thing.
Yeah,
I think it's already
it's already done. Yeah, it's official.
Yeah,
for Civil War, Captain America.
Well, I didn't know who knew. I didn't know who knew what.
Well, we
just
know.
Us. We're the only ones. We made the call.
Yeah,
the film board was notified.
Okay, so let's see, Andy. Talk a little bit about your angst in more detail.
It was a fun movie, but I guess I just find, like I said, Tony Stark's character, Robert Downey Jr., I do really enjoy him as an actor, but he really just felt like and I think a lot of it boils down to the script. Some of it was so rushed that his scenes just felt like such Hollywood angst acting, like just dealing with his, quote, issues about all the things that he's concerned about, and just having to develop Ultron in 30 seconds, and just everything was just so just jammed in there, trying to we have to have Tony Stark feel this way because we've got to get to this point, and everything would just happen so quickly that I never really cared. I mean, I had a fun time, but I just didn't care about any of it, I think is really how things ended up for me. I mean, I liked it better than Avengers. I felt the antagonist in Avengers, just the end of that film, Loki, kind of became disabled, and you lose interest in the antagonist because now it's just these aliens that nobody cares about, and I was just completely disinterested in the whole end of that. This, at least it had an antagonist that I was more invested in, and so it had that going for it.
Throughout the whole movie, I had moments where you get pulled out of a movie and you go, why would they do that? It's like I had some issues with certain parts of the movie discerning characters' motivation for their actions. Like, why would they do that? And I don't have any really good examples off the top of my head, but a lot of them had to do with Tony Stark. And my problem is I feel like they didn't do his character justice in this movie because they are needing him to set up Civil War. And I feel that I feel it's unfortunate within the scope of this movie.
About the fact that he is, and I'm just guessing because it's called Civil War, but it's about the fact that he is causing the Avengers to do things that makes humans more angry at the Avengers?
They're setting up a conflict between Captain America and Iron Man about basically enhanced humans, like what to do about them, right? And if you look throughout
the Registration
the whole movie,
Act, right?
No, that's a mutant thing.
That sounds
that is
sounds very much like X-Men.
Because this is what I keep thinking about Peter
thing.
Parker and Spider-Man. Like Peter Parker was, if I remember, and I read very little of the books, but I remember he was a big part of kind of Tony Stark's storyline in the Civil War.
Well, it was about whether the superheroes should maintain their secret identities. Tony was very upfront with his. You had others that didn't, and Peter was sort of like torn between, do I reveal who I am and endanger my family, or do I, side with those that want to conceal their identities and have this sort of duality, as opposed to Tony and the rest that are in like the Fantastic Four, who are like, yeah, we are who we are, and everybody knows that. So it's not quite the Mutant Registration Act, but it's like we need to be able to hold these people accountable, and we can do that by knowing who they really are.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, and it goes. If you look throughout the whole movie, just the scope of this movie is what I'm referring to. Right, is that the little nitpicking that Tony and Captain America do throughout the whole movie, you can kind of see there's a theme. They're setting up, them each being not tired of each other, but sort of tired of each other's viewpoints. So every time you had these moments in the movie where he had to sort of make Ultron, finish the sort of the logics that he was going through, you were like, yeah, I know he's super smart, but really?
Man, I just did not get that. I walked away feeling really, really pretty good about that stuff. Like I thought that in particular that relationship and watching their relationship start to fringe at the end, I thought was really pretty strong.
It's called The Age of Ultron, but I mean, really, as I reflected on this film, there's a character, and we've only briefly mentioned this character, that is really the crux of this whole thing, and that's Scarlet Witch. Because where does Ultron come from? He comes from Tony, and Tony's vision of, she pulls out all these fears and insecurities that all of them have, and that's the launching point for this. And to me, I agree with Pete. It was really interesting to see, if you go back to Iron Man 3 and his sort of post-traumatic stress, and we know that Bruce Banner, he doesn't want to be part of this. He knows he's got a role to play, but if they have the ability to pass this mantle onto something else, then yeah, they'll take it. Tony's like, I want to go to the beach. Bruce is like, he doesn't want to have to worry about endangering people by hulking out.
Yeah, it is consistent.
And so they've got these anxieties and these fears that are driving them to create Ultron. And ultimately, I mean, it's really fascinating to me that, a sequel. If you look at Avengers, and then this is the second part. Just like in Empire Strikes Back and Temple of Doom, we take a darker side, and it's Scarlet Witch pulling this darkness out of these characters that ultimately causes them to really fragment and splinter until they, get rejuvenated out on the farm. But it was a really interesting dynamic to that story. I wanted more breathing room for that. I wanted more of that. A lot of the, there's a lot of scenes that feel rushed, but I think there was something there, and I wanted a little bit more of the character development. I think there were some really interesting things that we had for these characters. I was really invested in a lot of them, in what sides that we were seeing of them. The movie starts off, we didn't even talk about the beginning. This starts off in the middle of, they've been, hunting down Hydra for months, I guess, for the past year. And we see all these things that they've built out. We've got Code Green, and we've got this lullaby thing, and all these things, these relationships that they've built up. And to see that, sort of splinter throughout the movie was really fascinating. And that role that Scarlet Witch played, I thought, was just really interesting, because we get hints of it at the beginning. At first I thought it was just this MacGuffin of when they get into that base, and it's like, oh well, we're going to let them have this, we don't want them to see what we're really doing. What were they really doing? Were they the ones trying to create Ultron? Was Hydra trying to do that, and Scarlet Witch implanted that seed in Tony, knowing that ultimately that's what was going to happen? I have to go watch this movie another time, because there's something I think going on, and it's either sloppy writing and we gloss over something and it's just like, yeah, we just need that to happen? Or is there something more to it as far as what the motives were for her to just, touch Tony, to give him that vision so that...
And then let him walk out.
There's something going on there, and it's really fascinating. I feel like the film just skipped past that in favor of a lot of these big fight scenes, and I'm really excited to see what they do with Scarlet Witch. I will not miss Quicksilver. It was like, hey, look, I'm watching Godzilla over again. I've got Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen, and she is doing such a better job with her character than he is, that I don't miss him. If he comes back, I'm going to be disappointed, because he didn't bring anything to this film.
That makes me so sad. I liked him.
He was handsome.
He was bland. He was bland, just like in Godzilla.
He was handsome and quick. What more do you want?
He's like a budget X-Men Quicksilver.
He's everything I like in people who can move really fast.
He was so much better in the X-Men film, though.
That's true. He was better in the X-Men film.
Wait, it wasn't him in the X-Men film. You mean
no,
Quicksilver?
Quicksilver.
No, but the
character
Quicksilver.
Okay.
When he was a mutant.
Well, and I think generally the effect was the visual choice, the effect that they went with in X-Men, I think was stronger. This one was a variant off of The Flash, which I think is really a great show, and I love what they do with The Flash on that show. But this was like it's pretty much the red blur but blue.
Right.
The only thing I'm going to say about this is that a lot of those things that you just mentioned are what I mentioned with movies, and I'm going to say it, but movies that have to set up other movies.
Yeah, this Thanos setup is one of the longest setups, I think, of any of these.
And I'm willing to wait for the payoff. I'm willing to wait for the payoff. It's just I did enjoy it, but I just felt like there was a lot more of that. And that's always been my issue with the Thor films. It was always like the Thor films were there to just, introduce the Tesseract, to introduce the Ether. That's all those films did, was to get these, these stones sort of into the Marvel universe, and they didn't really serve a lot of other purpose, which was another interesting aspect of this. Was Thor. That was the other part where I'm like, he came in with he comes back like, dude, we got to bring this thing to life. This is what's going to save everybody. I'm like, where? I'm waiting for a separate backstory on that. Like there was something that was cut. We saw his visions.
You're talking about the Go Juice? When he got in the tub of Go Juice?
Yeah, when he got in the tub of, Go Juice. There's a whole different interpretation I have of this whole thing of why it was Thor that had to come back, which has to do with Tony and flaws of humanity trying to create life, and it takes divine intervention, which in the form of Thor brings vision to life. You can actually have, intelligent life created, but only through divine intervention, since he's a god, which I thought was an interesting piece. But it was another part where I was like, there's some cool stuff going on with Thor that's actually interesting. What does his vision mean? What is he getting out of that? It's going to tell us volumes about him. yeah, cut that scene. Cut that scene. We'll just move forward. He's going to come in with lightning and bring the thing to life and go. Great. But I felt like, oh, there's such a rich story to be told there.
Well, there's a Thor Ragnarok coming up. So,
There is.
Right.
There is. Yeah, we'll see.
Like, I find myself changing my expectations of these films. And I think it's a result of the conditioning that they have done through phase one, which is really great, which is, you know what, if you want the whole story, and we talked about this the last time we talked about, one of these movies, if you want the whole story, you need to invest in more of the properties. Because, I mean, this week's who is watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? They have been leading up to a long tie-in to this film, and it's the same thing they did with season 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and they did with Captain America: Winter Soldier, which gave that show an incredible boost in interest and energy. And season 2 has been a long lead up to this film, and I just know that the episodes that come after, I'm really looking forward to them, because now all the secrets are out, and they're able to use this huge tentpole to embrace and extend that story in new and really interesting ways.
That's really icing on the cake, right? I mean, you appreciate that, right, Pete?
Absolutely, I appreciate that.
So the thing that's amazing about what they're doing here is that is a great through line, and you don't necessarily even need it to like the films, because they're creating all these other through lines in the films. One thing that I kind of want to address the angsty things that I'm hearing from Andy and Steve about the not enough space for the characters. I totally agree with that. Actually, I think that there is a lot of just get on the train and go with it. But I really liked the pace from a fanboy perspective. And I think one thing that they do here, if we think about it objectively and we think about what they're doing with Avengers as a movie, as a comic book movie, something that they've had trouble with in making these movies, pre, 2005, we'll say, when they were making comic book movies, is that they never did a good enough job of satisfying the fanboys and satisfying the casual viewer. And one thing that I think they're doing a really good job of here is finding a really special place in between there that's allowing it to be entertaining for people who are casual viewer. But if you're going there for the character development, it's going to fall off a little bit, because I think they want to make sure that they satisfy the fanboy too. And that's something that coming to it from like having both an Iron Man and an Avengers subscription when I was a kid, I don't necessarily need the character development, because I've been developing them for 20 years in my mind. So the interesting thing that I think they do really well here is, yes, they don't satisfy all the needs there, but they do a far better job of finding that middle ground than we had in anything before this whole, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 drama began.
Well, and I definitely agree with that. And I mean, obviously they're throwing in characters like what's Ulysses Claw, right? What's his name? The guy
Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis played.
Yeah.
He whatever little.
Oh, he's a guy?
He's the arms dealer or the vibranium dealer.
No, I knew who he was in the movie, but I didn't realize he was a character in the universe. Is literally everyone a character in the universe? Do I have to start paying attention to
Literally everyone. Every single
I have
person.
to start paying attention to janitors? Oh, my God.
Yes.
Yeah, especially
Yes.
janitors. They're probably Stan Lee.
Well, I'm going to go take a bath. Yeah, right. Fair
No,
enough.
but Ulysses Claw is in the Black Panther storyline,
Ulysses
which
Claw.
he comes. So that'll come out whenever that comes out in 2020 or whenever. So we'll.
2018.
Back
Yeah,
to
Andy
Wakanda,
Serkis.
baby.
That's
Yeah.
right.
As soon as they said Wakanda, it was the same feeling I had when they said the Vision. I was like, oh, here we go. Here they're setting the table for that next
To
one.
your point, my kids looked over at me when they said Wakanda, and my son, he's like, oh, Black Panther, that's coming too. This is part of the gestalt of the cinematic universe that I think they're doing really well. Let's move into to production. I want to start back up with the very opening sequence, which to my mind was just quintessential awesome action parade. I thought it was just beautifully shot. I had a great time watching that cinematic build as we moved through the forest and got to meet these characters again.
I'm just going to say that Hydra are horrible fighters.
Well, because the whole crossover with the Star Wars universe, they turn into stormtroopers. They're the gang that can't shoot straight. Yeah.
Actually, it would be the other way around. Stormtroopers turn into them.
Oh, that's right, because that was a long time ago.
It was pretty far away.
That's right.
You think after they get their butt kicked enough, they would go, maybe we shouldn't drive tanks up against the Hulk again.
It's okay because Cap will just throw a motorcycle at you. I mean, there was some really
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
And I love that, slow down to like the nice shot of them all lined up and like just, freeze frame, snap that. There's a cover of, a comic book right there. It was just gorgeous.
That's what I thought they were doing that on purpose.
Yes,
Oh, I'm sure.
that's the
They did
trailer
the same
shot.
thing in the first one where they're all lined up in the city, camera, circles around. It's just gorgeous. And you go, that's, Justin, you're right. It's for the fanboys. I think a lot of that just right there. And they are satisfying them with things like that.
It was interesting that the beautifulness of it, right? Because it's all CGI.
Right.
And I was wondering what people's opinion was with regards to Star Wars, who's doing as many practical effects as they can.
So they say.
I thought that was Fury Road's big thing.
No, Star Wars too. He has come in and said, he is on the record as saying, the thing he appreciated about Star Wars, the original trilogy, was the emphasis on practical effects, and he has put an emphasis on practical effects in this film. And
he'll compensate with lens flares, right? So to offset
yeah, exactly,
flares,
right.
So some of the beautifulness is because you look at it and you go, okay, you catch glimpses of physics not being right, or when she picks up his
the shield
off of the ground. It's like, I'm thinking that would take her hand off. But okay, and you just sort of go with it, right? But I was curious as to if anyone else got a little exhausted with the over CGI-ness of it.
I unfortunately, by mistake, and I know a lot of you guys like the enhanced theater experience with 3D and Atmos and stuff like that. I made a mistake and I booked a 3D theater for me, and I particularly don't like 3D, and especially for a film that, did anyone else watch it in 3D?
I saw it in 3D.
I did too. 3D IMAX.
Yeah, it didn't really feel like it was made for 3D. There wasn't really anything that needed that, and unfortunately, I think that being a part of the 3D, to answer your question, Mike, I don't know that I was able to notice a lot of that stuff. I was taken out of it because of having the glasses on. I just don't like the experience, so I didn't notice it as much. A lot of the stuff, I make apologies for it when they're doing fantasy or comic books and stuff like that. When it comes to CGI, unless it's really terrible, I don't really get taken out of it. And for this, it might be because I was in a 3D theater, but I didn't notice any errors. Nothing really stuck out to me.
Like for me, I thought the lifting the big chunk of Earth up into the sky was beautiful, was amazing. I thought they did enough to make it, to sort of sell it to the point where I'm like, sure they tunneled under the ground and attached rockets to this thing and brought it up. Yes, but some of the other stuff, like when they had all the little Ultrons flying around and they're being destroyed by throwing origami paper at them, or hitting them, punching them with fists by the unenhanced people or things like that. The children are throwing rocks at them and they're dying and they're getting destroyed. I felt it was a little, that's when you sit there and go, okay,
Well, as a quick thought, because this sounds like something that maybe I could give a separate viewpoint of, because of fake things, jumping on fake things, and I hate fake things. It's really, for me, it's about how it's used. CGI has made everything possible, and I've overstated my feeling in like the Hobbit movies of just because you can doesn't mean you should. I feel like Joss Whedon, though, really, like, I am saying fake in my head, but because he cleverly does it. He's not giving us God's eye view. And yes, that person that got angry at me on the forums, whatever. I'm still going for it. God's eye view. No one wants it. But the idea of like, if you're using it to do really clever things and keep the action moving in a way that's not just blurring to me, is I will happily stop and say, okay, yes, I know this is CG, I know this is fake, but I'm willing to go on this ride, and Joss Whedon does that for me. I feel like he takes every single moment of a fight, and it's not just, okay, so then we go through this fight, because it leads to this. It's almost like every fight has a joke in it.
Well, and I think that's really rewarding, Tommy. But I was thinking about you specifically as I was watching the film today, when the final kind of standoff at the church happened. It was again the siege of New York. Everybody is gathered around in a big circle around the central core, and we have the exact same setup. And now they're fighting robots instead of aliens. And okay, I get it. Was that fatiguing for you? I mean, I was imagining you were just really popping a stiff migraine at that point and ready to gouge your eyes out.
Number one, yes, I do call it a migraine. And then more importantly, no, it really, he runs right to the limit of when I'm like, okay, I'm Tommy and I'm out. Like, I don't care. And then he does something special. I think Joss Whedon is a genius. This film is so overstuffed, has so many people, has so much CGI, all this stuff, and just for me, little old Tommy hates everything of this kind of world, that just when I'm like, okay, I'm starting to want to think about popcorn or something, he just throws in a little fun, either slow motion or a character moment, or knows where to zoom in. I think he's just a genius of knowing where to make it how to make it less numbing. How to take CGI and make this whole crazy world and then say, oh, right, and then you care about this because of this. I think that's the only way I can say it.
I mean, Tom, so I agree with you because it's the only reason I don't hate the movie. Because normally I would be picking it apart because I would be sitting there rolling my eyes I would have gotten dizzy because rolling my eyes because of usually the failures of it, but he kept grounding. He almost kept saying, "Yeah, I know it's funny. Hold on," but seriously, we're doing some other stuff here.
Oh, that's a fun way of saying it, like grounding and also taking the air out of it, of like letting this huge immersive like world-ending war going on, and then giving it a second to laugh at itself. I mean, that Hawkeye moment when he says, and I know I'm paraphrasing,
no one would ever know.
Oh no, that was amazing.
Great. Yeah, we're in a flying city.
That's it. We're in a flying city and we're fighting evil robots and I have a bow and arrow. Nothing makes sense. I mean, that's genius.
Because that's what everyone thought in the first movie.
That's what I think in every movie. And so I think he's an absolute genius. I was really a big fan of this film. I really want to make that clear. Was that the question?
It is now. It's answered.
Okay. Sorry, did I answer any question? I was trying to be helpful.
Yes, you did. Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
okay.
You absolutely did. You absolutely
okay.
did. Other comments on the let's talk quickly about camera, shall we? About how do you think Joss directed his camera on this one? You feel good about it? You get dizzy? You feel besides the 3D?
I didn't see it in 3D, and I can say, and maybe it's because I was a little bit closer to the front than I normally like to be, and I think I adjusted, but the Hulk Iron Man piece, which there was some cool stuff, and it didn't go too long, but there were just some moments in there where it was not quite disorienting, but it was just so many. How many cuts can we put in 10 seconds? And there was just a lot going on, a lot of just flashes of things that it was a little on the borderline of overwhelming. I think I know where I am. I'm not completely lost. I know that it's these two guys fighting in the city, but there was at some points just a little bit too much going on. It felt like we were in too close on that one. Whereas when we're fighting all the robots, and we're even there when we're moving within the city to the different, I was fine with that. But for some reason, that one, it just felt like the camera was trying to get these like tight close-ups on that just, it didn't give me any context or add anything to the fight there.
I mean, I thought it was fine. I mean, I did see 3D IMAX, which was a complete waste of money because it wasn't shot in 3D nor for the IMAX format. I've never actually gone to an IMAX screening that actually had a big notice up on the screen before the movie started saying, please note, this film was not filmed in IMAX, and you are not going to experience the IMAX experience. It's like,
Wow.
oh, okay, glad I paid that extra chunk of money to watch this.
That's horrible.
I know, it's like, but give us your money anyway. I don't know why I
That's like
stayed.
that's like walking into a Starbucks and saying we don't have coffee, but enjoy our CDs.
Our ambiance.
Yeah,
Enjoy our forest green and wood.
yeah. Take all the mixer sticks you want.
I think is it a sign of restraint that he didn't shoot it in IMAX? I actually thought it was.
I just think
thought
it's a sign of budgetary
yeah, possibly
needs.
by then.
Can I ask how much actual shooting would they have had to have done? I mean, how much was not green screen?
Yeah, that's a good point. This was shot on green screens on locations all over the world, though. I mean, it really was a global film.
It was a weird call to take those same green screens all over the world and just set it up in a same warehouse. Yeah.
The cinematography is done by Ben Price, who actually was the director of photography for Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh. My quick thing is that it was, again, saying that this film was so overstuffed in the way that I think that Joss Whedon was a genius, that he, working with a cinematographer, at times it was a little bit too much, but there was so much going on. And the fact that I wasn't ripping my hair out makes me want to give them weird Tommy Oscars.
God, I want to see those. Can we have those made?
Yeah.
A Tommy Oscar?
The simple fact that there wasn't anything that was terribly distracting is a huge credit to them on this. I mean,
yes.
You see, I think maybe the one of the greatest things that Joss Whedon brings in terms of direction is the fact that you don't see his affecting it. Right, so all these other Marvel movies, they'll use, or you think about like Man of Steel. Like I hated Man of Steel because they have so many cheap director and cinematographer tricks. There's none of that here. He's really just allowing the movie to work its magic, and that sounds so cheesy right now.
That's interesting.
The fact that you don't go, hey, this is a Joss Whedon movie because I saw the lens flare. You guys are joking about J.J. Abrams in the lens flare.
Right.
Joss Whedon doesn't have that because they're just that good, right? He knows when to back away, and I don't know. I was really happy with it, and I've been happy with both Avengers movies.
I don't know. I mean, I totally see your point, JJ, but I also, I really feel like, I know a Joss Whedon film when I see one, right? I mean,
but isn't it because of the dialogue?
Well,
and
that's
the
what I was going
humor?
to say. It has a certain tone and voice to it, and maybe I can't quite pick out the Joss Whedon visual touch as well as I can say, part of the reason I loved Guardians of the Galaxy was because of the James Gunn-ness of it. Let's say that, right? And part of the reason that I would love, Man of Steel is if I were a big fan of Zack Snyder. Like it's one of those things. Like he definitely has a style, and that style was applied to that film. And if you like him and his films, you're gonna probably like that movie.
Right.
I didn't necessarily think it was cheap. Just that, man, they are going down a very different road, and it's not really my style.
Totally. And I guess I agree with you about Joss Whedon. I think the thing that I like most about him is that I know his tone without having to see it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been absorbing his tone for 25 years, right? I mean, he's just he's one of those that is all it seems like I don't remember a time before Whedon.
Do you remember the Bible?
He was in that, right? Didn't he have some? I think it was in Acts.
Well, no, he only showed up in Leviticus. It was a weird call. Nobody likes Leviticus. But he made it better.
Okay, but speaking of that, did you guys catch? And I don't know. I don't know. You guys can maybe tell me if this is part of the Ultron character. But there were a lot of weird Bible references coming out of Ultron. I'm going to build my house upon this rock, and go ask Noah. And there was just it seemed like a lot of biblical.
But
references.
then also Pinocchio.
Well, yeah, you got the Pinocchio as well. But it was just a couple of those. I thought, okay, one. But when a character does 2 or 3, I was I didn't know if that was just something in part of his backstory that they brought.
I don't think it's
Is
I
it
don't think
because
it's
he has a god
specific.
complex?
Maybe.
Well, kind of. I think it's more that he's an insane robot, right? I mean, I don't want to simplify his character, but that's kind of how they reference him in the whole Marvel universe in the books too. Oh, that crazy robot! I could actually upload. I uploaded one picture before. I could upload some pictures of the way that the Avengers talk about Ultron, and it's like, oh yeah, we were fighting that crazy robot. Like they have it years and years, all the different iterations. Like, oh,
That's so funny.
you guys were with the crazy robot on the East Coast. We've been over here.
And now he gets a central villain character in a big giant movie. That's good.
But didn't Joss Whedon say that he was like it had to be Ultron? So why was Joss Whedon so excited about Ultron if Ultron is such a joke in the comic books?
Maybe he likes the idea of the insane villain.
And also the internet. You also brought it up. The internet changes everything.
No, yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think Ultron, I think it did have to be Ultron. I mean, when you look at where we are, I mean, let's look at the cultural connection of where we are right now with surveillance, with connectivity, with personal privacy online, with identity, and
Obamacare.
And Obamacare.
I'm just
why do I let Tommy get in my head? Scarlet Witch.
I'm the dumbest Scarlet Witch ever.
I think this was, in terms of an arch villain, I think this is a really resonant AI terror, and I really liked it. Even as it diverges from the comic lore as much as it may. I feel like culturally it's really relevant.
Smart.
I was thinking Skynet the whole time.
Right, Skynet, and it's the same. They did the same thing, which I think really brilliantly with Winter Soldier, which we talked about. It was this whole idea of government surveillance and the oversight of SHIELD and what business do they have. That is a resonant story, and it's important for these films to tap into that.
Did you catch Tony Iron Man talking about putting a suit of armor around the world?
Yes. Absolutely.
I have a very quick dumb thing to say, and it is attributed to JJ and I's friend Darnell Smith. He said that he hated it when Ultron gets interrupted downloading or uploading or whatever it was. I'm paraphrasing. Uploading into the new version that becomes Vision when he's in the coffin. Why did they run away with it in the back of a truck like Russian mobsters? Like, the scene ends with them just flying the truck away.
Oh, but come on. How many people in the audience had an audible gasp at that moment? I was like, I've never seen that before.
When the rockets come out of their face, so cool.
Fair enough.
My wife wanted more shirtless gore.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, JJ calls me his wife. And I did, and I was a big fan.
All right, let's do a quick. Give us 2-3 lines. Final wrap up. Do you really think people should see this film, Andy Nelson?
I mean, it is fun. It's an enjoyable film, but for me, it wasn't anything that did anything that any of the other films in this universe have done. It pretty much was kind of the same old, same old. Honestly, if I were to go back and pick something in our list of things to watch, I would probably watch any of the Hobbit films over this film.
Whoa.
Oh.
Whoa.
Wow.
You just
I know.
stomped the yard.
Gauntlet thrown.
Mike Evans, what do you think?
So I like the movie in spite of the fact that if this was done, I think if this was actually executed any other way, I would have hated it, but I actually enjoyed it. I was able to suspend disbelief. There was enough humor. I do think it suffers from the fact that it's setting up movies to come, and I think that it spent a lot of its time doing that. But I did enjoy it, and I think people should see it.
All right, Steve Sarmento.
I'm gonna say, with this one, I embrace my inner 12-year-old, and I just, I'm looking forward to seeing it again, for the thrill ride that it is, to just be sort of immersed in the action and to just go with the flow on this one. I think anybody that sees it, they can go in just expecting to be entertained, will thoroughly enjoy this film. If you start loading yourself with expectations and some other things, or start not, what's the opposite of suspending? I guess of letting your belief weigh you down instead of suspending your disbelief. Yeah, you're going to start to have these moments that are going to bother you. But just set that aside, put on your 12-year-old brain, and go have a good time.
All right, JJ.
I definitely think people should see the movie. And we talked about the it's good for the fanboy, good for the film lover, or at least it finds a middle in between. But I think also because it's an action comedy, and it's a good action comedy, I think a lot of action comedies that come out these days are actually kind of weak in action and weak in comedy. And I think this one, because of Joss Whedon, it works in a way that it reminds me of movies that I've missed for a long time.
Hear, hear.
Oh, so elegant. Tommy, can you beat that?
I cannot, but I can say hear, hear, and jump on his back and say that Joss Whedon is a genius. And this is again, as I said in the very beginning, this is a genre I have no taste for and no ability to understand. He made me care. He made me laugh. He made me excited. I giggled and I gasped. And yeah, this film's great.
And I am with most of you. I really enjoyed it. And the question is not should you see this film, but it's should you see it twice and maybe a third time. I think definitely twice. I really enjoyed this film. I had a great time, and I would watch it before I would watch any of the Hobbit films. There you go.
Ditto.
Paths diverge in a Yellowwood. I can't wait to see where this next segment goes. It's time to rank it.
Flick chart, film board assemblers, flick chart time. I had a very busy weekend. I'm sorry.
Head over to flickchart.com/TNR Film Board right now. If you do that right now, if you don't have an account, you should sign up and start ranking movies. And you could start with our list and see how your list of our favorite movies line up with our list of our favorite movies that we've talked about on this show. Let's go ahead and do that.
All right, first up, Avengers, Age of Ultron or Divergent?
Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Avengers.
Which
one was Divergent? The first one?
The first one.
Please. Oh,
Avengers.
my God.
Age of Ultron. You shut up. Age of Ultron.
So the answer would be it doesn't matter.
Right.
Oh, okay.
It does not matter. Age of Ultron.
Okay, Avengers or Looper?
Looper.
Avengers.
I would do Looper.
Avengers.
I say Avengers.
2 and 2.
I'm
Steve and JJ?
Looper.
JJ.
3. Steve, it's all...
It's Avengers because I was just mentioning this. Looper was very meh to me the first time around, and I didn't really get anything out of it. Whereas I laughed and was thrilled by the Avengers.
Plus, all the foreheads in the Avengers were better than any of the foreheads in Looper.
Yes, this is true.
Well, we're at a 3 and a 3, so Pete.
Yes.
Should we do rock, paper, scissors, water?
I hate you. Let's do it.
What?
This always works seamlessly. Don't worry. Stay tuned, podcast listeners. This is a really great segment.
This is great audio right here. Ready?
Yeah.
1,
Okay, 1, 2, 3,
paper.
Wow.
Okay.
1,
Oh.
1,
2, 1, 2, 3,
paper.
scissors.
Wow. No.
And Looper takes it.
No, it doesn't.
So Avengers wins it?
Denied.
Podcast listeners, next
Looper
week
takes it.
we're going to have them paint a picture in real time, and then we'll tell you which is better.
Okay, this one, you all know how I'll go on this one. Avengers, Age of Ultron, or The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug.
Avengers:
Anything
Age
but
of
the
Ultron.
Hobbit.
Avengers.
Which one was the Desolation of
That's the
Smog?
second
That's
one.
the second one.
Number 2.
Yeah, Avengers.
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 I knew I was a solo voice on that one. Avengers, Age of Ultron, or Captain America, The Winter Soldier. I will do The Winter Soldier.
I will also do the Winter Soldier.
Was the Winter
Avengers.
Soldier the second one?
Yes.
Yes.
Avengers. But I actually liked I like the Captain America movies.
This is what the flick chart does.
Me too, but Avengers.
It's the Hydra Dharma Initiative exposition bunker that bothers the heck out of me.
I know.
You hate that?
It's just like...
But it's got a great, like the 70s conspiracy thriller vibe. in it.
I know, and that's why I'm torn because I have story issues with Avengers 2, as I said. So I think I'm gonna have to go with Captain America because of it did, despite that one scene, did balance a lot of story very well. Yeah, so I'm gonna go with Captain.
Okay, so Captain America 4-2. Avengers: Age of Ultron or Side Effects.
Really?
Weird.
Avengers. I'm going to say Avengers.
I'm going to
do
say side
Avengers.
effects. Sorry, I think I'll be alone, but I'm going to say side effects because I like being alone and I suffer from depression.
No, I'm going to say Side Effects too.
We are talking about Soderbergh, right?
Yes.
Rooney Mara and Channing Tatum and the other Paul Bettany, Jude Law.
Oh.
You mean the discount budget, Paul Bettany?
Oh no.
No.
Wasn't Jude Law Paul Bettany before Paul Bettany was
It
Paul
was.
Bettany?
Did you see how quickly
right.
that changed? Tides changed.
Very nice.
Fast. I'm going to say
I
Avengers.
said side effects, by the way.
Avengers for me.
So we got
is it
one
just-
side effects and 2 Avengers so far, right?
We have 2 side effects.
2 side
Oh,
effects.
2 side effects.
Oh, I'm saying Avengers because although I enjoyed side effects, it just.
So how many? Was that 4 Avengers then?
I think it's 4 to 2.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay,
14.
so Avengers takes it. All right, so there you go. Avengers number 11.
Yay!
Awesome.
11 out of 34.
It should be higher because of the Looper thing, but I'll let it go.
Yeah, that's a good point. So does that mean it's right next to Looper?
It's
No.
it's between Captain America: Winter Soldier and side effects.
And side effects.
It should be below World War Z and above Looper, I think, is where
It should be below the Hobbit films.
This movie's no Divergent.
All right. We have already determined where we are going for it next month, and we're very excited about it. Andy, where are we going next month?
Next month, we are going to be talking about none other than Jurassic World.
I'm so excited, dinosaurs!
And we're broadcasting direct from
Dinosaur.
Isla Nubar, aren't we? Isn't that we're all taking a trip to the island?
We are. The
right.
park is open. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've heard. And Chris Pratt is doing a little bit of Velociraptor whispering. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Make sure you head over to the nextreel.com/filmboard and catch up with all of our reviews that we have done as a gang of thugs. Don't forget the regular show, Next Reel. We're in the middle. We're smack dab in the middle of our Mad Max quadrilogy. Yeah, leading up to Fury Road. So this coming week, we're hitting up Road Warrior, Mad Max 2.
That's right.
Road Warrior.
Mad Max 2, Road Warrior.
Colon, the Road Warrior. Very excited about that. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Tommy, thanks for being here, buddy.
Thank you for that. It's always a pleasure.
And JJ.
Is that Ultron?
Ultron has joined us.
It's so weird.
Thank you for being here, JJ.
I love you.
I love you too. And Steve.
Oh, hey, glad I could be here this time. And, Pete, you and I didn't get into it this time. Something's going on. We're in agreement on this one. It's feeling good. We're on a
I know, it's
roll.
feeling pretty. It's really strange.
Yeah.
Love is in
Really
the
strange.
air.
A little bit of
It
little
is May.
tingling. Mike, it's good to hear your dulcet tones after a long while away.
Hulk smash.
Hey, Andy. I'll talk to you on Thursday.
Sounds good, man.